Welcome to the historic Cliff Keen Arena, live from Ann Arbor, Michigan. We've got a top three matchup between the second-ranked Michigan Wolverines and the third-ranked Nebraska Cornhuskers. Both of these teams hold the top spot in the country on multiple individual events, but only one team can leave victorious today. We begin on the floor exercise with Michigan's Javier Alfonso. Michigan getting things started on the floor exercise. Javier Alfonso, first pass here, back 2.5. Unfortunate sitting down that first pass, that connection from the back 2.5 to the front layout. He will take a 1-point deduction for that fall. Big double twisting, double tuck right there, though. It's so important for him to regain his composure, especially after taking a fall on the very first pass. This competition is a 5-up, 5-count meet, meaning every score will count. You cannot drop a low score. See the press handstand here. That is a required element. Each athlete must do at least one non-acrobatic element. The press handstand fulfills that. Back layout, just a simple side pass, working to minimize deduction. Big dismount, Arabian double front. Oh, he almost locked his knees out. Needs to be a little bit more patient on that mishap at the. As we mentioned, this is a head-to-head format meet. Both teams will be on the same apparatus athletes from one team to the other. Front full to a front double tuck. And a big double-double here. This is Nebraska's Toby Liang. Back 2.5 to a front layout. We saw Javier from Michigan have a mishap on that same pass. He executes it nicely. Round off, double full down the side. Great job on that landing there. On floor exercise, the majority of your deductions will come from your landings. So getting those sticks is so important. Dismount here, Arabian double front, half out. He stalled that in the air just a little bit, made a great recovery, but unfortunately did have a step out of bounds. So that will be an additional 1/10 deduction for going out of bounds, in addition to the 3/10 deduction for the hop on the landing.
Second floor exercise for Michigan, David Woma.
Up next for the Wolverines on the floor exercise, David Woma. Out of Cypress, Texas. He's a Big Ten and CGA Specialist of the Week. A few weeks back, we're used to hearing his name on vault. Seeing him on the floor exercise here. Front 2.5 twist, that's called a Randy, to open things up. A little bit of trouble on the landing, but nothing too bad. Big combination into the double front. When you're watching these steps on landings, anything that's less than about a foot should only be a 1/10 deduction. Anything greater will be a 3/10 deduction, and that same rule applies to steps as well as hops on landings. That one right there should only be a 1/10. Really would like to stick that, though, on those side passes. There's that pass again, back 2.5 to a front layout. You see a lot more of those now after a rule change a couple of years ago. You no longer get connection bonus for a twisting skill into another twisting skill. That was a great full twisting double tuck dismount, though. Just a small hop on the landing. That'll be a solid score for Woma and the Wolverines.
Competing second for Nebraska on floor exercise, Nathan York.
This is Nathan York, awaiting the judge's salute for him to begin his routine. Nebraska coming off of a win over Penn State University last week. Set numerous career highs, certainly trending in the right direction, looking to continue that here in Ann Arbor today. You see the coaches working on the mat in the corner over there, drawing some lines with chalk to make sure everybody knows what is in bounds and what is out of bounds. That is somewhat of a temporary solution. These athletes are allowed to use additional landing mats prior to a competition coming up in a couple of weeks called Winter Cup. Nathan York beginning his routine now. Front double full to a layout front full. There's that twisting to another twisting skill connection we spoke about earlier, so he will not get connection bonus, but of course he will get the value of each individual skill. Oh, and unfortunate on that double twisting double tuck, he just put his hand down, slightly under rotated. Those skills are so tough because they're fighting for those stuck landings. They don't want any landing deductions, but it's a razor's edge between sticking a landing and under rotating and taking the 1-point deduction like he just did there. So if you're keeping track at home, that's one fall thus far for the Wolverines, one fall thus far for the Cornhuskers. And those sorts of things become extremely important as we get later into the meet. Those 1-point deductions can make the difference between victory and defeat. Gearing up for the dismount here. Back triple full. Just a step on the landing. You saw him do a 3.5 twist earlier in that routine, so comparatively, probably an easy dismount for Nathan York right there. All in all, good routine. Unfortunate with that fall, but the rest of it was relatively clean, so I would expect that to still score in the high 12s. And speaking of some of the scoring, how do we make sense of scoring in men's gymnastics? Well, the final score is made up of two different components. You've got your difficulty score as well as your execution score. Every skill in gymnastics is assigned a difficulty value. The more challenging the skill, the higher the value. And when you add up the value of the top 10 skills in a gymnast routine, you have your total difficulty score. From there, your execution starts at a perfect 10.0. The deductions come from the judges as they see form breaks, falls, etc. And then at the end of the day, we add up the difficulty score with whatever is left of the execution score, and that will be your final score to count towards the team total. This is Casey Cummings for the Wolverines. That second pass, rather unique a whip into an Arabian double tuck. You see a lot of guys do a round-off back handspring, which is the exact same skill with your hands placed on the floor. He skips his hands and punches directly into that Arabian double, which does give him the connection bonus we referenced earlier. Back full and a half to a front full. Beautiful landing. You saw him keep his head over his shoulder just a little bit, looking for the ground, trying to get his eyes and his body to work together to find that stick, and he did it successfully. Back 2.5 dismount. That'll be a 3/10 step on the landing, but that's a strong hit for the Wolverines. Heard his teammates there chanting in the background, KC, KC. He's a graduate student. He's been around this team for a long time, and that team camaraderie is very, very apparent. Chase Mondi preparing to begin his routine on the floor exercise. I got a chance to watch him in warm-ups, and his form is just beautiful. Look at this. Full twisting double layout like a lawn dart into the ground. No hesitation on that landing whatsoever. Front double full to a front full. Another stick. There's a big double-double. He's got sticky feet today. That's 3 for 3 stuck landings after 3 passes on this floor routine for Mondi here. And I know I'm harping on these stuck landings a lot, but if you think that there's a 1 to a 3/10 deduction per landing, that could be almost a point that he saved just from sticking the first 3 passes. And of course, I jinxed him right there. Took a hop on that landing. Not a big deal, though. Everything has been so clean so far. His form in the air, beautiful. Legs together. Knees have been straight. Another small hop on the landing there. But this has been a clean routine. If he can put this dismount down, this is going to be a big score. Arabian double front, half out. Another small hop there, but that should be a very, very good score. Probably in the 14s for Mondi and the Cornhuskers. Landon Blix saluting for his floor routine. Only a sophomore, but he is a member of the senior national team for Team USA and an All-American on the floor exercise. Has the potential to put up big numbers, especially when you have a first pass like this. Watch, 2.5 twisting double back, and I don't know how he found his feet. He was under-rotated on that, but some cat-like reflexes to keep him on his feet. That was another mistake there. You saw his knees buckle slightly as he punched into that combination. Did a phenomenal job covering it up. And he just looks a little more tired than I'm used to seeing him. Under-rotated on that double twisting double back. That's usually an easy skill for Landon. It's wide arm press to handstand. Don't see as many of these anymore based on some rule changes from a couple of years ago. You've only really got a couple of inches between the top of your head and the floor in order to avoid deduction. The judges keep making it harder and harder for athletes to complete that skill without deduction, so you see it less and less often. Landon did a pretty good example of it there, though. You can tell he's tired. He's just trying to get through this routine. Big dismount. Triple full, actually over-rotated that one. He said, I am not under-rotating anything else. And he got through it. That's not what he's capable of, but he got through it. And his start value is so high, it will still be a reasonably high score. Now, when we talk about start value, That's just the hypothetical maximum possible score that an athlete could receive. So it is their difficulty score along with a hypothetical perfect 10 execution score.
Competing fourth on floor exercise for Nebraska, Luke James.
Luke James for the Cornhuskers, career best 13.85 last week against Penn State. Opens up with a front 2.5 down the side. Don't see that too often. Most guys need a little bit more room to run and generate power than that. A lot of front tumbling packed into those first two passes. Big double-double. A little bit crooked down the side. Saves enough room not to go out of bounds. And that is tough. That's a back 3.5 twist. Little stumble out of the landing, probably 6/10 in total there, but not a disaster. And it almost looked to me like his knees buckled just a little bit on that punch. Again, out of the back 2.5, covered it up very, very nicely. Triple full dismount, hop on the landing. You know, both teams a little bit more landing deductions than I would anticipate normally from them. Sometimes that's a product of nerves. Sometimes it's just a matter of it's the first event. People aren't 100% warmed up yet. But nothing too bad on either side so far, just a little bit more deduction than we might be used to at this point of the season.
Final competitor for Michigan on floor exercise, Paul Judah.
Coming up on floor for the Wolverines, Mr. Michigan men's gymnastics himself, Paul Judah. It's worth mentioning the absence of Michigan superstar Fred Richards. He is resting up this weekend. Will not get to see him compete today. But the second half of the dynamic duo, Paul Judah, getting ready to start his floor routine here. Front 4.5, another Randy. We've seen that skill a lot today. Very nice combination pass there. He needs to be careful to control those landings. If the judges think that he did not show control over the landing before transitioning into the corner transition, and they can give him a deduction for that. Watch this flare sequence here. This is beautiful work. He goes up to the handstand, back down. He'll do it one more time. Absolutely beautiful work. We'll see some more of that from him on the pommel horse later on today. Those handstands must be held 2 seconds. If you're watching at home, the criteria to receive credit is a full 2-second hold. Big dismount, Arabian double front, half out. He gets the stick with authority. Paul Judah making it look easy on the floor. A little bit of a contest going on the floor right now. Who can be the loudest after that stick from Paul Judah? The Michigan bench erupted, cheering. The Cornhuskers immediately went into their team chant. Love to see that energy from both sides. This is team captain Sam Phillips for the Cornhuskers. Big opening pass. That 2.5 twisting double back again. Oh, and too much power. He actually landed, it looked like, outside of the bounds there. Be interesting to see what the judges do with that. Glad his foot and ankle are okay. He was almost right off the floor. And a huge double-double to the stuck landing right there. It's evident how much power he has in these skills. Some unique work right there. down the side of the floor, showing off some artistry, creativity. Two and a half to the front layout. Good connection, just a little bit of form in the air. Anytime that your legs come apart, the judges, depending on how severe that is, the judges can take either a 1, 3, or 5/10 deduction. From his 2.5, I would guess probably only 1/10. Big dismount, Arabian double front, and he gets the stick. Both of these teams want to win here today. You saw the anchor for both with the stuck dismount after their routine. Great floor rotation from both of these teams. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with a score update, and we'll move on to what is probably the most challenging event in men's gymnastics, the pommel horse. We'll keep the cameras rolling. We'll be right back on BTN Plus.
Fans, the running score after today's first rotation, Michigan 66.550, Nebraska 67.300. Fans, at this time, we would like to First up from Nebraska, Johnny Gronellis.
Welcome back to Cliff Keen Arena, live from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Scoring update for you on the floor exercise. Michigan logging a 66.550. Nebraska with a 67.3, off to an early lead here in Ann Arbor. Attempting to extend that lead here on the pommel horse as we get things started with Yanni Chronopoulos. Career high of 13.8 on this event came last week against Penn State University. Oh, and unfortunate, just a fall right there. You saw him begin to pike his body, meaning his hips began to bend. You want a straight line from your shoulders all the way down to your ankles on the pommel horse. Anytime that you introduce an angle in the body, it's going to slow down your swing and put you at risk of hitting the handles on that pommel horse and eventually falling and taking that 1-point deduction. We mentioned earlier, this is a 5-up, 5-count meet. No scores will be dropped. Nebraska was up by about a point. That could erase the early Cornhusker lead already. Good composure here on that Magyar Savato up to the handstand. Those dismounts are critical on pommel horse. Did a great job of it there from Yanni Chronopoulos. Unfortunate fall early on in the routine. Did a good job of minimizing deduction from that point forward. Pommel horse is often compared to the balance beam on the women's side of the sport because nobody really wants to go there, but everybody has to. It's such a high stakes event where the smallest misplacement of your hand, the smallest balance check can result in a fall. And as we mentioned earlier, those 1-point falls have the power to truly make or break a meet for either team. This is Logan McEwen for the Wolverines, junior, out of Austin, Texas. So most athletes will start their routines with those scissoring elements in between the pommels. That is a requirement. Every athlete must do a skill that fulfills that requirement. Nice 360-degree skill on one pommel there from Logan. Good dismount. And that's exactly what the Wolverines wanted from Logan. Not the highest start value, not the highest difficulty, but a clean and consistent performer. It's exactly what you want in your leadoff spot. There's a lot of strategy that goes into who goes up first, who goes up second, and generally speaking, especially on the pommel horse, because it's already a nerve-wracking event, you want to put your most consistent man up first. Even if it might not get the highest score, you want somebody who can set the tone for your team, and Logan did a great job of that there. For the Cornhuskers, this is Travis Wong, junior out of Miami, Florida. That's the first time we've seen that today, a scissor handstand, or what was supposed to be a scissor handstand. He stopped about halfway up, came back down. He will not receive credit for that skill. That was a good tong fei, traveled all the way from one side of the horse to the other. You did see a little bit of that pike in his body. Those pike deductions are brutal because it's every single circle. If the judge thinks that you come around 360 degrees and have a bend in your hips, every single time he sees it, he can take a 1 or 3/10 deduction for it. Overall, good routine from Travis. I'll count that as a hit routine, but again, that scissor to handstand will not count, so he will lose some points off of his start value there, but avoids any major 1-point deductions for a fall.
Competing second for Michigan on the pommel horse, Kevin Chow.
For Michigan, Kevin Chow. Freshman from Des Moines, Iowa. Nice scissor skill all the way across the body of the horse. That's called a McCulloch. after legendary Michigan gymnast Sam McCulloch. And that's a very nice one pommel sequence. That's called a flop. Anytime that you spend a good amount of time on one handle like that, there's a good bet that it's going to be some form of a flop sequence, and there's a good bet it's really, really difficult. The longer you spend on one pommel, the higher those difficulty scores tend to go up. Beautiful flares here from Kevin as well. Oh, and a little bit of rhythm on that dismount there. That was a great save. Great fight from Kevin Chow right there. There will be deductions for rhythm, for losing his speed, a little leg separation. So it wasn't perfect, but he avoids that fall and really fired up his team just from showing the determination to not fall off the horse when he was circling that slowly. That is tough. Most guys would take a fall right there in that same situation. And this head-to-head format really increases the pressure on an event like the pommel horse, because these teams, as much as you try to stay in your bubble, that's one of the most common coaching phrases used in the sport, is stay in your bubble. Don't look at what the other team is doing. Don't look at what anybody else is scoring. Don't look at any of that. Just stay in your bubble and focus on your own gymnastics. But when you're going head-to-head on the same event, it's almost impossible to not look up and notice what somebody else just scored. And that only serves to increase the pressure on you and your teammates. This is Nathan York, sophomore from Plainfield, Illinois. Good one pommel work there. Again, you're always looking for how much distance is there between the athlete's hips and the body or the handle of that pommel horse. More distance usually means a better swing and less deduction. Just the dismount left here, getting a little tired at the end. Those dismounts are so incredibly important, and they're a key to avoiding deduction. There's a lot of areas on those dismounts where you can take a deduction. For York right there, he did not complete a pirouette, so that was not a D value dismount, which is you can think of as the standard in gymnastics as a D value dismount or higher, being worth 4/10 of difficulty value. That was just a C because he did not do the pirouette, so he will lose a little bit of element group credit as well as a little bit of difficulty for that dismount.
Competing third for Michigan on pommel horse, Zach Granados.
Zach Granados, sophomore out of Virginia Beach. And really unique element there. 360 degrees down and back all the way across the horse. Do not see that too often. And Zach has a very pommel horse style body type. A lot of times when you see guys in gymnastics that are a little bit taller than everybody else, there's a good chance that they do pommel horse. And that full spin on one arm, that is tough. That's a full kier known as a sewn. To do it that late in your routine is very, very difficult. Just the dismount here, triple Russian. He's got to get up high on that. Great job there. Running out of gas a little bit at the end. He handled it beautifully. And his team is fired up. They can see the fight. The thing about team morale is your routine doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to show how hard you're willing to fight for the man standing next to you. And oftentimes that can energize a team even more than a perfect routine.
Competing fourth for Nebraska on the pommel horse, Cooper Giles.
Cooper Giles for the Cornhuskers. He will do that same 360-degree turn on one hand that we saw from Granados. Here it is. And that was gorgeous. You saw his body stay fully extended the entire time. It's such a tough skill because there's a lot of air time there, and when you're on one hand like that, you just can't make a correction like that. Because he had both hands to work with, he could get that second hand down quickly and regain his balance. That was gritty, but he was able to get through that skill. And that's a great dismount right there. Pirouette all the way down the end. A little bit of a fight. Oh! And the golf celebration. I like it. See Landon Blix preparing to begin his routine for the Wolverines. Coaches helping him get that pommel horse set exactly how he wants it. And in gymnastics, we always talk about how important having short-term memory loss is, meaning if you had a rough routine on floor, which Landon did, he's got to put that behind him. He has a lot of gymnastics left to do today. There's that McCulloch again. And then the mini McCulloch, same skill, only halfway across instead of all the way across the horse. And he's a little off there. You see the pike in his hips, had a big leg separation, seems to have gotten control back now. You don't want to ever slow down while you're on pommel horse. Oh, and that is tough for Blixt right there. That dismount will not count. Anytime that you see a reverse in the direction of the hips, when you start to go up towards a handstand, you come back down, immediately you will not receive credit for that dismount. So he does have to get back on the horse and do that dismount one more time in order to receive credit and complete his routine. He has 30 seconds from the time that he fell off the horse to remount. And again, almost the same mistake. They'll give him credit for that, but there will be, well, maybe they won't. And you just saw the judge right there give the hand motion. Nope, that was not a handstand. He tried to hide it by doing that pirouette quickly and getting off the horse. Judge said, no, sir, you've got to be all the way upside down in that handstand for that to count. So this is a different situation now, because now there's been 2 falls. At this point, he has to do a good dismount. He cannot simply choose to end the routine. He's down and dug too big of a hole for himself. This is important right here if he wants to keep Michigan in this meet, and that one was beautiful. We talked earlier on floor about how Landon looked just a little bit more tired than maybe we're used to seeing him. He's got a lot of gymnastics left today. He is not done. We'll see him on a couple of other events, and he's going to have to put that behind him.
Final competitor for Nebraska on the pommel horse, Taylor Christopoulos.
Taylor Christopoulos set to go on the pommel horse for the Cornhuskers. Head coach Chuck Chmelka said that Taylor is the type of guy that when you talk about him, people just think that you're lying, because he does not run out of good things to say about this guy. Says he's a true leader of this Cornhuskers team. And a phenomenal gymnast as well. There's that McCulloch all the way across the horse. Mini McCulloch back into the middle. Good rhythm so far in that swing, keeping a good speed all the way throughout, and a little bit of a break there. You saw his feet come apart It looked to me like he brushed the pommel horse just a little. I saw some chalk fly up. Regained composure very nicely. Oh, and again, a little trouble on the dismount. And he actually turned that into an upgrade. As long as they give him credit for it, it looks like they will. He did an additional pirouette because he was falling off the other side of the horse. Actually goes in his favor. Score for Landon Blix just flashed an 11.35. Those are scores that make it very difficult to win meets. If you think 13.5, 13.6 might be an average score on the pommel horse, you're about 2 points down. Puts Michigan in a little bit of a hole. Paul Judah going to make his best attempt to climb out of that hole right now. Paul has a beautiful pommel horse routine. He does almost the entire thing in flares, starting right here. And really, any time that you see somebody do a skill, and that was beautiful right there, all the way up and down from the handstand. But anytime that you see somebody on pommel horse do a skill in the flared position like this, the same skill with legs together is usually a little bit easier. So not only does it look great, but it also adds difficulty value to the routine. And so dynamic, that flare just so naturally flows up to that handstand dismount. And Cliff Keen is excited about that one. Paul Judah doing his best to get this Wolverine squad back on track after a rough pommel horse rotation for both teams. But there's a lot of gymnastics left to go. We'll be back on the Still Rings, the Strongman's event right here on BTN+. Welcome back, everybody. Cliff Keen Arena, live from Ann Arbor, Michigan, here on BTN+. My name is Brandon Burns. We're following these two teams, the Michigan Wolverines, Nebraska Cornhuskers, as they battle it out here to see who can leave here with the top spot. This is Rithik Puri on the still rings. Really tough combination right there. Back up rise to a straight planche, down immediately into a Maltese. There's another one. Back up rise Maltese. If you're watching at home, all of those strength skills must be held for 2 full seconds, and the judges only begin counting when the athlete stops moving. So if you're still transitioning into that strength skill, that does not count. It must be 2 seconds completely still. This has been a clean routine so far for Rithik. Good handstands. I know he's been putting a lot of work in on those handstands lately. Giant through, full and a half twisting double back. Just one little step on the dismount. That is a great routine to get things started for the Wolverines as they are staging a comeback down by about a point after a 63.6 team total on the pommel horse. This meet is closer than you might think it is. Nebraska 63.85 on the pommel horse. Both teams struggling a little bit through that rotation, but if the Wolverines are going to stage a comeback, this is the event that they want to be on. Currently ranked #1 in the country on the still rings. This is Yanni Chronopoulos for the Cornhuskers. We mentioned Michigan ranked 1st in the country on rings. Nebraska not too far behind, ranked 3rd in the country. Beautiful Azarian to an iron cross right there. That slow roll backwards into the iron cross is what makes it an Azarian, makes it significantly more difficult than other methods of getting to that strength position. And you'll notice the same strength positions repeated often throughout the rings lineup. There's really only a few. There's a planche, holding yourself parallel to the floor above the rings. There's a Maltese, parallel to the floor at ring height. And then, of course, you have your iron cross. Those will be your main strength positions as we work our way through these lineups. What separates them is how you get there. Do you swing into it? Do you lean into it? All of that is taken into account to come up with your difficulty value. Dismount here for Chronopoulos. Double twisting, double back, sticks the landing. Made it look easy. Nebraska fighting to hold on to that lead here in the 3rd rotation. And still rings is a good event to be at if the pressure's on. If you felt a little nervous earlier in the competition, things aren't going your way, rings is a great place to regain that composure because truthfully there's not as much to go wrong. It's not like high bar where you have to let go of it, catch it again midair. There's just less opportunities to fall on an event like this, which makes it great to get your headspace back where you need it to be. This is Chris Reed, brother of James Reed, former Wolverine, who is also excellent at this event. Chris very, very strong here in his own right. Similar mount to Rithik, back uprise straight planche, lower to a Maltese, and that was gorgeous, perfectly flat and level with the floor. Back uprise Maltese, and those strength moves, they might not look like much, but go ahead and lay down on your living room floor, see if you can lift yourself up like that. I promise it is tougher than it looks. Good giant work here, the swing to handstands. Technically, not an element group requirement anymore, but there is a 3/10 neutral deduction if you don't do it. So you're kind of voluntold to do a swing to handstand throughout the course of your rings routine. This has been great so far, just the dismount left. Full and a half twisting double back. Just a small hop on the landing. That was a great rings routine from Chris Reed. He throws out the flex at the end just so you know how strong he was.
Competing second for Nebraska on the rings, Travis Wong.
This is Travis Wong for Nebraska. Back uprise straight planche. And very unique skill there. That's a front uprise. You don't see too many of those. They're relatively difficult for the amount of points that they get you in a routine. But unique and, I think, beautiful skill nonetheless. Really nice handstand work here. They're called the still rings for a reason. You want to see the athletes keep those rings completely still, no swing in the handstands or the L holds. If that swing gets too big, the judges actually are entitled to take a deduction for it. Giant through, getting ready for the dismount here. Full twisting double layout. First time we've seen that today, and we get to see it with a stick. Avoids landing deductions there. We'll have to see if the judges take a pike deduction if you bend your hips on the way down into the ground and you do not hold that completely straight layout body position. The judges may take a deduction there. But overall, that was a great routine from Travis Wong. Very, very clean all the way through. Next up for the Wolverines, Akshay Puri out of Chicago. This is Rithik Puri's brother, also the brother of former Wolverine Shaunik Puri. All three brothers with a great history here at Michigan. You've got to imagine there's a little brotherly rivalry here to see who scores the best on rings. Similar mount to his brother, back upright straight planche, down into the Maltese. He even looks up at the judges to say, hey, just so you know, this is perfectly flat. Beautiful Maltese position there. You'd have a hard time taking any deductions on that. He looks like he could hold that for hours. Good giant work, a little bit of a swing in the rings, not too bad. These swing skills here, double fronts in between the rings, those are called Yamawakis. You're only allowed to do 3 strength skills in a row before breaking them up with some form of swing skill. A lot of guys use those Yamawakis for that purpose. Just a full twisting double back, not the most difficult dismount that we'll see on rings, but he does a good job of keeping it clean, just a small step on the landings, and those strength positions were so precise that that should be a very, very good score for Akshay.
Competing third on the rings from Nebraska, Sam Phillips.
Sam Phillips for Nebraska, career best 13.8, happened last week against Penn State. Back uprise into the iron cross, one of the most iconic skills in gymnastics, of course, is the iron cross. He does some inlocates into those 2 double front skills. Very nicely done. Those Yamawakis are tricky because if the judges think that you showed too much support on the rings, if you had a little bit too much weight down on the rings as you go from the first flip into the second, then technically they don't have to give you credit for it. You should free float all the way through both of those flips. Just a little balance check there on the handstand, nothing too bad. Dismount here, double twisting double back with the stick, and that was up there. That was some of the best height on a rings dismount I have seen in a very long time. Very, very well done there from Sam Phillips. Next up for the Wolverines, Javier Alfonso, and watch the precision in his strength elements. He's ranked second in the country on this event, and a lot of it has to do with how much he's able to avoid deduction on these strength skills because they're just so precise. Gets things started with a tough back uprise, inverted cross directly into the straight plan, straight down to the Maltese. That is about 10 seconds of strength, isolated strength holds without any rest whatsoever. So difficult. The thing that separates Javier from a lot of really strong ringmen is he is a phenomenal athlete with those swinging elements, the Yamawakis, the giant swings, the handstands. He really doesn't have too many weaknesses on this event, and it shows in his scores. Just the dismount left here. Full twisting double layout. Can he hold the stick? He can. The green flag goes up. He had to fight for it, but he will get the stick. In addition to that 1/10 stick bonus, he avoids any deduction for the additional step. So whenever you see an athlete stick a landing, it's really at minimum a 2/10 swing in their final score because you add 1/10 for the stick bonus, and of course, you do not have to worry about any deduction for steps or hops on landing, which would be at least 1/10 if you have one. Great, great job from Javi on that rings routine. Asher Cohen, similar to his teammate Sam Phillips, also scored a career high last week at Penn State. For Asher, that number was a 13.9. Nobody has broken 14.0 yet on the rings today. Can Asher be the first to do it? Back upright straight planche, rolls back into an Azarian cross. A little bit high on the entry. They want to see you rotate directly into that cross position. They don't want you to go up and then lower back down into the iron cross. That was a great back uprise cross right there from Asher. He does a great job of turning his rings out. You see his palms are almost facing forwards when he was doing those handstands there. Judges love to see that. If they think your rings are turned in too much and your forearms might be touching the straps, that's an automatic 3/10 deduction. No chance of that happening with Asher here. This has been clean so far. Just the dismount, full and a half twisting double back, and sits it down. He had plenty of rotation. It looked like he was just trying a little bit too hard to get that stuck landing. And on a skill like that, where it's a blind landing, you can't see the floor as you're approaching the ground, that is a risky, risky move to go for the stick like that. Really clean routine, but unfortunately will take a 1-point fall at the end.
Final competitor for Michigan on the rings this afternoon, Paul Judah.
Paul Judah will anchor the Wolverines on the still rings. Paul is a great athlete to have in that anchor position. So consistent. So whether you have a great rotation, he can add the exclamation point. If you have a not so great rotation, Paul is the one that you want in that spot to help bring it back. Lowers into the Maltese there. Don't see too many people do that. Helps avoid deduction for bent arms or high entries. And that's Paul's strategy on this event. You're not going to see some of those inverted crosses or Azarian Malteses, those really big strength moves, but what he does is very, very clean. Perfect handstand position there. Just the dismount left. This has been beautiful so far. Full twisting double layout, small step on the landing, but that will still be a very solid score for the Wolverines. Keeping an eye on the scores here. Rithik Puri with a 13.75, Chris Reed with a 13.7, Akshay Puri 13.65, and Javier Alfonso with a 13.8. Still waiting on Paul Judah's score to come in. It looks like Michigan might be closing the gap with Nebraska on this rotation. Score so far for Nebraska: Yanni Chronopoulos 13.7, Travis Wong 13.0, Sam Phillips 13.5, and Asher Cohen 12.4. Back up rise straight planche, lowers into the Maltese. Oh, and fighting for that handstand. Does a great job controlling it there into the Yamawakis. Those handstands can make you or break you on a rings routine like that because they take so much energy to save it. I know a handstand looks like a simple skill in this sport, but on those rings, everything's moving. It is tough, especially if you have to fight for it. Oh, and just opened up a little bit too early on that dismount. We've seen that a couple of times here on this rings rotation. People have the height in the rotation, but just a little bit early on the timing to kick out and try and stick the landing. Unfortunately, that will be another 1-point fall. Michigan closes the gap on the Cornhuskers. It is the vault coming up next right here on BTN Plus. Welcome back to Ann Arbor, live from Cliff Keen Arena. Current standings, Michigan 198.6, Nebraska 196.25. The Wolverines staging a comeback operation here, made up a lot of ground and looking to continue the trend on vault. Vault typically your highest scoring event in men's gymnastics due to the fact that it's just one skill. Here's Chase Mondi for the Cornhuskers. Kazumatsu full and a half, that's 2.5 twists all the way around. Great landing, just a 1/10 deduction on the hop on the landing. That's a great way to get things started for the Cornhuskers.
Competing first for Michigan today on vault, Casey Cummings.
For the Wolverines, getting things started in this vault lineup, Casey Cummings, graduate student out of California. He does a different style vault than most of what we will see today. This is a Yurchenko style, so he will do a round off onto the springboard, back handspring on the table, 2 twists on the way out. Just a hop on the landing, but a very, very clean vault. Typically, those Yurchenko style vaults will score a little bit better than the Kazumatsu style vaults simply due to the fact that there is less room for deduction. Most Kazumatsu style vaults on the way up to the vault table, you'll see just a little bit of a leg separation. That Yurchenko takes care of that by doing a back handspring into it.
Up second on the vault from Nebraska, Alex Natashi.
Up next, Alex Natashi for the Cornhuskers. Had a little bit of trouble with this vault in warm-up. I saw him sit this vault down just a couple of times. Yurchenko 2.5. No problem whatsoever today. Beautifully done. Just a small hop on the landing. That was fantastic. Good form in the air. Lots of amplitude off the table. That'll be a great score for the Cornhuskers. We apologize for any technical difficulties. Being told we might not be able to have a full view of the vault landings here, so I will do my best to describe what's happening here as we make our way through the vault lineup. We'll do everything that we can to get that camera moved for you as well. Up next for the Wolverines is Chris Reed. The good news is this is the fastest event in men's gymnastics. Chris doing a Kazumatsu style vault. 2 twists off the table, pikes down pretty harshly. That'll probably be a 3/10 deduction in the air for piking down, as well as a 3/10 for that step on the landing.
Up third for Nebraska today on vault, Luke James.
Luke James for Nebraska. Scores so far, Casey Cummings for the Wolverines, 14.25 for Nebraska. Mondi, 14.6. Alex Natashi, 14.75. This is Luke James for the Cornhuskers. Another Kazumatsu style vault. That was a 2.5 twisting vault. About a 3/10 hop on the landing. Looks like he might have hopped out of bounds with at least 1 foot as well. The rules on vault are exactly the same as they are on floor. So if you step out of bounds with 1 foot or hop out of bounds with only 1 foot, then that is an additional 1/10 deduction. If you hop out with both feet, it is an additional 3/10 deduction on top of the deduction for the step or the hop itself. It's worth noting that on the line counts as in on both floor and vault. So if you're on the tape, you're okay. But as soon as you go outside of that line, you've got a problem. This is David Woma for the Wolverines. He has an uncanny ability to stick this vault. Oh, and just a 1/10 deduction, just the smallest hop forward. Earlier this season, he had made a name for himself by sticking 3 of those in a row in 3 back-to-back-to-back competitions.
Up next for Nebraska on the vault, Zach Peterman.
Zach Tiedemann coming up on the vault for Nebraska. He's a CGA regular season All-American on this event, as well as high bar. Brings some big scoring potential for the Cornhuskers here. Score update, Chris Reed for the Wolverines, 14.1. Woma, 14.8. James for the Cornhuskers, that last vault was 14.15. And this is Zach Tiedemann. Another Yurchenko style vault, back handspring onto the table, 2.5 twist. And will they bring the green flag? They will. They give him the stick. Beautiful, beautiful vault. Those Yurchenkos, when you can stick them, they score so high. Again, you avoid a lot of those form deductions during the pre-flight phase, going from the springboard to the table. And if you can stick a landing, those numbers can get awfully high.
Up next on the vault for Michigan, Landon Blix.
Up next for the Wolverines, Landon Blix, another one of those Yurchenko-style vaults. We talked about the importance of that short-term memory loss earlier. Had a rough go on floor, a rough one on pommel horse. He's got to put that behind him and do what he is capable of here. Michigan pulling away slightly over the last couple of rotations. But this is certainly not over yet, and it's still very, very close. Landon, Yurchenko, 2.5, 3/10 step, but clean overall. That'll be a good vault to help get him back on track for this meet today. We talked about how big those numbers could get on this event if you can stick one of those Yurchenkos. Zach Tiedemann showing proof of that with a 15-0 score on that last vault. That is definitely going to help the Cornhuskers catch back up to the Wolverines after this rotation. Taylor Christopoulos preparing for his vault now. The anchor for the Cornhuskers, another Kazumatsu-style vault, 2.5, just the smallest step on the landing. Almost looked like he was about to stick, but really fantastic job of minimizing the deductions on this event from the Cornhuskers. They might tie things up after this rotation.
And competing on the vault for Michigan, Paul Judah.
Next for the Wolverines on vault, Paul Judah. We've talked a lot this rotation about the difference between the Kazumatsu-style vaults and the Yurchenko vaults, and how typically your Yurchenkos are going to be cleaner because of that leg separation. Well, take everything that I said and throw it out the window, because Paul Judah is probably one of the best, not just in the Big Ten, not just in the country, but in the world at keeping his form flawless throughout this vault. Look at this. And what did we just say? Kazumatsu full and a half, 2.5 twist all the way around to a perfectly stuck landing. I'm sitting a little further away from where the judges are, but I don't see a deduction. The perfect 10 doesn't exist in men's gymnastics, but it ought to. I don't see a reason why that should not score his start value. The judges got up awfully quickly. Seemed like there wasn't a whole lot of debate about what to do with that score. We'll see what they give him, but my goodness, that's one of the most well-executed vaults I've ever seen. Score update, Taylor Christopoulos, 14.7 for the Cornhuskers. Paul Judah, 15.1. He leads the nation on this event, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is why. I don't know where those 2 tenths came from. We'll have to talk to the judges about that. But nonetheless, we'll be back right after this quick break for the parallel bars. Things are getting interesting here in Cliff Keen Arena. We'll be right back here on BTN Plus. Welcome back to Cliff Keen Arena. Live from Ann Arbor, Michigan, Lowen McEwen getting ready to mount the parallel bars. Both teams put up some huge numbers during that vault rotation. Michigan with a 72.65 event total. Nebraska with a 73.2. Closing the gap a little bit on Michigan here. That was a great peach half from Logan McEwen to open things up. Very consistent performer on this event. And what a unique skill. Healy twirl done very, very well. Caught that well above the bars. Diamidov full spin on one arm, stood to the handstand, just the dismount left. This has been fantastic so far. Double front, and my goodness, he flipped that thing into the ground. Barely snuck it around, but made it work. Great job handling a little adversity at the very end of a beautifully executed, clean routine. Current team scores: Michigan 271.25, Nebraska 269.45. Michigan just about 2 points ahead, not quite, going into the fifth rotation. Not sure if you can see it from your angle, but all the way at the edge of Cliff Keen Arena, Wolverines circling up. We talked earlier about the importance of staying in your bubble, not allowing the pressure to get to you by watching what the other athletes are doing. Gymnastics, it's a tough sport because it is you against you. It is a team sport, but at the end of the day, you are the only man out there on the apparatus when you're competing. And whatever the other team is doing has no bearing or effect on your performance. You just have to go do the best gymnastics that you can do. So the mental toughness of some of these athletes is just as important, if not more, than the physical toughness. This is Toby Liang for the Cornhuskers. Big release move right there, straddled front 1 1/4. That does not feel good on your arms when you have to land with your entire body weight coming down on those bars, but it is worth quite a few points of difficulty. Dismount, double front with a half turn, and he stayed on his feet. I don't know how. You saw that low squat and step to one side. but that was a good routine overall. Actually avoids some deduction on that landing, not nearly as bad as that could have been. He did a great job not scrambling with his legs, taking more steps than he needed to. He was extremely patient on that dismount, and that's going to save him a few tenths of a point. You see these athletes helping prepare the bars. There's Fred Richards down there, not competing today, but a superstar on just about every event for the Wolverines, taking this weekend to rest. But he's down there helping his teammates get the bars ready so that they can do the best that they can possibly do. A lot of these athletes like the bars prepped in different ways. They use a combination of chalk, honey, water, everything they can to get a good grip on those bars. Unlike high bar or the still rings where you have a grip on your hand with a dowel that helps you hang on, it's just your hands on that bar, and if you slip off on the bottom, you're going to have a really bad day. So having a good grip that you're comfortable with is so, so important. Javi opening things up with a nice Healy twirl, peach handstand there. Got to be careful to keep those arms completely straight. The judges are looking for even the most minute elbow bends. And good job there. He almost looked like he fumbled his hand just a little bit when he caught right over the upright. The bars feel different based on where you are. They flex more where he is now in the center compared to when you're directly over those posts that are holding it up. Double pike dismount, hop on the landing, but great form in the air. That's a solid hit from Javier. As you can see, there is a lot that has to happen in between each of these routines. They have to change the settings on the bars, make them more narrow or wider, depending on the athlete, prep the surface of the bar like we spoke about earlier. And a lot of these athletes will actually wipe down the floor just under the parallel bars as well. If the judges see chalk flying up after one of those underbar skills, they might assume that an athlete hit the floor with their feet. So the coaches are always very, very particular about wiping off the floor under the bars to make sure that that does not happen. Getting things started here for Cole Partridge. Press handstand on the edge of the bars. This is a very dynamic routine. You're going to see some fast-paced gymnastics later on. Starting with this right here, a Bavzar all the way from one end of the parallel bars back to the other. That was executed beautifully. Very similar skill here, called it to pelt. A little rhythm right there as he caught, but avoids any major deduction. Stutz handstand. Working his way through this routine nicely. Got to be careful with those knee bends going up into those Diamondov style skills. The judges are sticklers for form, but a huge double pike and an uncharacteristic mistake. He popped that double pike up into the air. He had so much height. And again, similar to what we saw on rings, just that air awareness. It looked like he kicked out a little bit early, under rotating and taking a large deduction on the landing there. That was a clean routine up until that point, but just giving away a little bit too much on the landings.
Competing third for Michigan on parallel bars, Evgeny Semenyuk.
Evgeny Semenyuk, first time that we have seen him for the Wolverines today, getting ready to begin his parallel bar routine, and he is ranked on the top 10 in the country on this event, and for good reason. Keep an eye on his form, especially during some of those peach elements. where he circles underneath the bar, pops back up into a handstand. I think he has some of the best peach-style elements in the entire country. Beautiful Healy twirl, that full spin on one arm. He catches it so early, allows him to have a really fluid swing. There's that peach I was talking about, uncharacteristic step with the hands, but as you can see, he just flies up to that handstand so easily. Straddle 1 1/4, done very well. Anytime you take a hop with your hands or a step with your hands, it is a 1/10 deduction. There's that Bobzar again, all the way from one end of the bars to the other. Great amplitude on that. And that's what that tapelt is supposed to look like. Catch and immediately press up to the handstand. Oh, and that was a brilliant save. His hand was not on the bar in that Stutz handstand. He was almost Stutz and caught in 1.5 arms. Big double pike, 3/10 hop on the landing, but great save on that Stutz. From where I'm sitting, it looked like his hand was just barely able to support himself. And somehow he was able to lean onto his left arm, adjust his, well, not his footing, but his hand on the other side, and avoid taking a fall there. That was great composure from Evgeny. A couple of scores coming in now. Logan McEwen for the Wolverines, 13.9. Javier Alfonso, 13.3. For the Cornhuskers, Liang, 13.25, and Cole Partridge, 11.7.
Next up for Nebraska on the parallel bars, Asher Cohen.
Asher Cohen getting ready to begin his routine. And the pressure is really starting to mount here for both of these teams because this is still very, very close. This is still close enough where either team could pull away with the win here. Nice front salto in between the bars. That is called a Yamaha. Good, that hand movement right there is, again, going to be a 1/10 deduction. Every time that you move your hands backward, forwards, doesn't matter. That's going to be a deduction unless you do it right there. So that's actually a great example. He did a pirouette, which is fine, but then after the pirouette, he slid one hand backwards, so that additional hand movement will be a deduction. And again, the dismounts wreaking havoc for the Cornhuskers team. Great routines thus far. Everything that they've done on the bars has been very clean, but unfortunately the dismounts continue to be a problem for this Nebraska team. They're gonna have to start sticking some landings if they don't want Michigan to run away with this one. Score for Evgeny Semenik just came in 13.75.
On next for Michigan on the parallel bars, Landon Blitz.
And score for Asher Cohen, 13-0. That's a testament to how clean the rest of that routine was, managing to break into the 13s with a 1-point fall. Keeps the Cornhuskers alive. Here's Landon Blixt on the parallel bars for the Wolverines. Oh, and a big deduction there on that peach handstand. You saw the arm bend, the arch in the back, and the steps. He's got to be clean from here on out. He does have a little bit of wiggle room based on the mistakes on dismounts from the Cornhuskers, but he does not want to give up more than he has to. That was a beautiful Stutz handstand right there. Went straight to that vertical position. Diamondov a little bit short, but he was patient enough to handle it well. And this is great practice for Landon. We've talked a lot today about how he doesn't maybe look at full strength right now, but in postseason, being able to fight through days where you're not at 100% and still go put down a routine like that, that is what wins championships. Great job from Landon right there. Sam Phillips next to go for the Cornhuskers on the parallel bars. He's a leader in this Cornhuskers team inside of the gym and out. He's received both Nebraska's Tom Osborne Citizenship Award multiple times and the Sam Foltz Hero Leadership Award. So both in and out of the gym, Sam Phillips making his influence felt. Score for Landon Blix, 13.25, manages to keep Michigan all in the 13s so far. There's that Hanma first skill, very similar to what we saw from Asher Cohen. Little balance check right there before the Healy. Manages that nicely. And there's another one of those skills similar to what we saw from Evgeny on the Wolverine side, a peach half, right into another peach handstand. Done very, very well. Big front 1 1/4. Sam's a little bit bigger guy than most gymnasts. He's taller, so those release moves look really good. Dumped that dismount back just a little bit, probably a little bit lower than he's accustomed to, but finds his feet. Just a small step on the landing, gets things up and running again for Nebraska. That was a good routine to get things back on track. We've talked a lot about short-term memory loss on the negative side today, having to forget maybe some mistakes that you made in prior rotations, but you also have to have short-term memory loss even when you do a great job. You have to forget your successes on other events and apparatus. Paul Judah coming off of a flawless vault 1 rotation ago. Sometimes if you allow yourself to get a little bit too excited about that, it takes your mind off of the event that's directly in front of you, which for Paul here is the parallel bars. So Paul is a veteran competitor. He knows how to reset in between each event, good or bad, and he is the perfect man for the job to anchor this rotation for the Wolverines.
Paul Judah.
Score for Sam Phillips, 13.75. We talked during the open about how technically precise Paul's gymnastics is. Keep an eye on his form throughout this entire routine. Good Diamondov there. Moy support all the way to the end of the bars. Even the little things like his handstands are just so solid and so precise. There's zero movement in any of those positions. Very nice to pelt right up to the handstand. Very dynamic with that movement. Here's the Healy twirl. Big dismount, double front, kicks out of it, gets the stick. A little head nod to say, yeah, this is normal for me. That's 2 sticks in a row, one on vault, one over here on the parallel bars. Paul Judah energizing his team and this crowd here at Cliff Keen. This Michigan squad over in the corner of the arena posing for the camera. You get the feeling the energy is beginning to shift in favor of the Wolverines.
Final competitor on the parallel bars for Nebraska, Taylor Christopoulos.
Final man up for Nebraska, Taylor Christopoulos on the parallel bars. Gets things started with a Hanma. That was sneaky. I don't know if you caught it. He took a slight slide forward with that left hand while he was swinging up to the handstand. Judges are on the other side, so they might not have seen it. They definitely saw those two, though. This is a tricky skill right here. It's called a Makut's. Very nicely done. Slight deduction will be taken for the pause on one bar, but that is a tough skill. It's 3/4 of a Diamondov on the way up, and then a 1-bar Healy on the way down. Taylor moving his hands around just a little bit, needs to clean that up. Great dismount though, dropped out of the sky for a stuck double pike at the end of that routine. Couple of small form breaks here and there, movement with the hands, but overall that will still be a high score to end things on the parallel bars for the Cornhuskers. Speaking of high scores, Paul Judah 14-4-5, the first man for the Wolverines to break into the 14s on the parallel bars today. We will be right back. It's the high-flying event in men's gymnastics high bar when we return on BTN+.
For today's final rotation, both teams will be competing on the high bar. Up first today from Nebraska, Max Otten.
Welcome back to Cliff Keen Arena, live from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Michigan currently leads Nebraska 339.9 to 334.15. The story is told on the parallel bar rotation. 5-point gain for the Wolverines after some dismount trouble for the Cornhuskers. We go to high bar now. Max Odden getting things started for the Cornhuskers. Nebraska is ranked first in the country on this event, and Michigan is missing the #1 ranked athlete on this event, Fred Richard. Big release skill here from Max Odden, and a little bit of trouble coming out of that Kovacs. Bent his arms to get back over the bar, but great job managing that. He's not done. Layout to Tkachev, and that one executed beautifully. Perfect distance from the bar. Here's another one, straddle. And those elements are always a balance of risk and reward. If you're too far away from the bar, then of course you won't catch it. You take the fall. If you're too close, you have a challenge getting over the bar on the giant out. Big step on the dismount, chest down there for Odden after a big double twisting double out. That's a big dismount. Don't usually see that from your first man up. Will take a heavy deduction for that landing, but stays on his feet.
Competing first on the high bar from Michigan, Robert Knoll.
You see the coaches adjusting the bar as we speak. Those cables that hold the bar down into the floor, if you adjust those, you adjust the way that the bar feels. Some athletes want it to be a little softer, a little slower to react and bounce. Other athletes want it to be quick, snappier. It's all athlete preference. This is Robert Knoll for the Wolverines. Gets things started with a nice half talk, short for half Takamoto. Big layout to Tkachev there. He's got one more. Straddle position this time. Very well done. Those are both clean release moves. On high bar, handstands are so important. Every pirouetting element needs to finish directly in a handstand in order to not incur deductions. Just the dismount left here. Full twisting double layout and a beautiful landing. Look at that, the Michigan sideline erupts. You can feel the energy. Michigan starting to walk away with it here in Cliff Keen.
Competing second on the high bar from Nebraska, Cole Partridge.
Cole Partridge next for the Cornhuskers on high bar. Max Odden, first man up, scored 12.3. Very nice full spin on one arm. That's called a Zoli Min to get things started. There's that half talk one more time. Winding up for a big release move here. Kovacs, and just a little too far away from the bar. That will be a 1-point deduction. And you've got to respect the strategy here for Nebraska. They know how tight this competition has been at times throughout the meet, and they are not pulling any of these big skills. They're still taking the risks. They're still keeping their start values high and doing everything that they can at the end of this meet. And now there's a decision to make. Will he repeat the skill? No, he will not. Layout to Tkachev. Here's another one, straddle position this time, done very, very well. The choice not to repeat that skill means he will not receive credit for the skill, meaning his start value or difficulty score will decrease as a result of it, in addition to the 1 point deduction for the fall. So he's probably down about 1.3 from that one mishap early on in the routine. Very clean since then, though. Here's a big dismount, full twisting double layout with the stuck landing. Great job cleaning things up toward the end there for Partridge. Score update for Robert Knoll, 13.9 with a 9.1 execution score. That routine only started from a 14.7 start value or maximum possible score. 9.1 execution on high bar is tough. There's so many places you can take deductions on high bar. You've got, of course, form, bends in your knees, leg separations, the things that you see on every event. But like we mentioned, those handstands is one of the most prevalent places on this event to take deductions, and it's just so easy to be 1/10 over, 1/10 under, and those really add up. So a 9-1 execution on high bar is great for the first man up for Michigan. This is Eric Ho taking the high bar now. Pike Tkachev to get things started, done very clean. Here's another one, this time straddle position. And that's a great example of the handstands we're talking about there. That half pirouette, simple skill, but finished perfectly in a vertical handstand. That's exactly what you want to see. Relatively simple routine, keeping it clean, not taking too many risks, just the dismount left. Full twisting double layout, small step on the landing. And the Michigan sideline is pumped up about that high bar routine. Score update for Nebraska, Cole Partridge, 12.0.
Competing next on the high bar for Nebraska, Toby Liang.
Toby Liang up next for the Cornhuskers. Keep an eye out for his dismount. It's a big one. I won't tell you what it is until we get there. Those in-bar skills, endos or stalters, where you see the athletes get closer to the bar with their hips. Every athlete is required to do at least one of those. So top half there again. Pretty good angle, just a little bend in the knees going into it. Nice Tkachev, two directly connected back to back, who will get connection bonus for that. There's a stalter, one of those in-bar skills again. Here's that big dismount I was talking about. 3 flips, triple back, 1, 2, 3. And a big step on the landing. Usually he sticks that. I've seen him stick that more than just about anybody else who does a triple back off of high bar. Step on the landing today, but an awesome skill nonetheless. High flying gets the crowd excited.
Off next on the high bar from Michigan, here's Wolfgang.
Pierce Wolfgang, freshman, taking the high bar now. And that's a tough skill. Don't see that too often. Did touch the bar On that, oh, and that was fingertips. That Tkachev, he barely got the dowels around the bar on that. That is tough. Needs to slow down just a little bit. He's in a little bit of a hurry, it looks like. He's doing a great job handling it, though. Already to the dismount, full twisting double layout, gets the stick. That was a gritty routine. It's a little sketchy at times, but he made it work. Great dismount at the end, too. You can hear the Wolverine squad in the background chanting, "He's a freshman." Certainly excited about the future for that young man on this team.
Up next for Nebraska on the high bar, Zach Peterman.
All right, remember, Nebraska ranked #1 in the country on this event in large part due to this man right here, Zach Tiedemann. 14.45 career best happened last week. He's tied for second in the country on this event, just behind Michigan's Fred Richard, who is not competing today. Nice full spin on one arm to get things started. There's the half tock. See that from a lot of athletes here today. Here's some big releases, though. Layout to Tkachev, so much amplitude directly connected to the straddle. There will be bonus points for that. Here's one more, pike position, and he's so good at the catch position on those releases. We mentioned it earlier. If you're too close to the bar, you will have a form break on the giant out. That was a fantastic jam, by the way, straight to the handstand. But he's so precise with where he catches those release elements that it allows him to have a fluid swing out of it. Just the dismount left, full twisting double layout, smallest of hops on the landing. That was a great routine from Tiedemann. He should be able to break into the 14s with that. Score update for the Wolverines. Eric had a 12.7. Pierce Wolfgang 13.1. For the Cornhuskers, Toby Liang 13.5. Evgeny Simonik will be next for the Wolverines. We talked about how clean he was on the parallel bars. It's the same story on the high bar. Known for his high execution scores. Let's see what he can do today. Gets things started with a half tock, very good body position. See a lot of guys lean over to the side. He keeps it nice and tight. Good Kovacs to open things up. It's a double back over the top of a steel bar that's 9 feet up. Can't say that's on the top of my to-do list. Good layout to Tkachev there as well. Just jam-packed with these release elements, and this is a tough sequence right here. German Giant straight into a Stalter roll. That hurt my shoulders just to look at it. Didn't seem to bother Evgeny too much. Just the dismount left, full twisting, double layout. Oh, and just gives up that small hop on the landing, but he kept it clean right up until that point. That'll be a great score for Evgeny and the Wolverines. Tiedemann for Nebraska with a 13.75, a little lower than I expected. Still a great score nonetheless. These high bar judges are brutal when it comes to deductions, especially on those handstand angles. Last man up for the Cornhuskers, Sam Phillips. He is exciting to watch on this event. We mentioned earlier on the parallel bars, he's a little taller, he's a little bigger, he's got a lot of muscles, and that helps him bounce the bar, which really lends itself to a dynamic high bar routine. He does not hold back on this event. Endo to a handstand, up immediately to the pirouette. Here we go, winding up for a big release skill. Kovacs double tuck over the bar, a little close on the catch, but he does a great job of using that strength and power to get himself over the bar. There's a unique skill there. Stalter directly into the Tkachev. There's another one in the straddle position, directly connected to a regular Tkachev. That is tough stuff and very unique gymnastics. You do not see too many of those. A little flat on that half tuck, not a disaster, but will lose a few points for being low, or a few tenths of a point rather, for not being as close to the handstand as he should. Big dismount, double twisting, double layout, 2 flips, 2 twists, small step on the landing. But that's a solid routine to end the day for the Cornhuskers from team captain Sam Phillips. Score update for Evgeny Simonik and the Wolverines, 13.5. We talked about his execution, just barely under the 9.0 execution, ends up with an 8.9 E-score for that routine. And to finish things up for the day, the man, the myth, the legend, Paul Judah, about to take what is shaping up to be a victory lap for the Wolverines, leading the Cornhuskers by about 8 points. Paul has competed in every single event today. He will finish his all-around campaign here on the high bar. Gets things started with a big layout to Tkachev. We've talked about his form all day long. So clean in the air. 2 Tkachevs back-to-back, straddle right into the pike. No problem for Paul, and he will get the connection bonus for those skills. Beautiful pirouetting element right to the handstand. Just the dismount left to finish things off for the Wolverines for a win at home, and he gets the dismount. Stuck just like we would expect it from Paul Judah. We'll wait for the final scores to come in before signing off. It is official. Michigan will win this dual meet. Just waiting on that score from Judah to come through, as he has had a textbook day on just about every single event here in Cliff Keen Arena, including a near perfect vault that proved why he is currently ranked #1 in the country. He also has an NCAA title under his belt for that event as well. Looks like Nebraska finished things off on the high bar with a 64.6 team score, finishing the day with a 398.75 team total. It's clear how much talent they have on that team. A lot of big skills and really a lot of good form throughout as well. But those landings on multiple events is really what kept them away from winning this competition today. Michigan certainly gaining some confidence after today, coming off of a loss on the road to Illinois last week, looking a little bit more like themselves this weekend. And there's the final score. Paul Judah, 14.6, a massive number on the high bar. They'll finish that event with a 67.8 for a total team score of 407.7 against Nebraska's 398.85. The Wolverines get the victory in Cliff Keene from Ann Arbor, Michigan today. It's been a pleasure to be with you across the 6 events from this competition. Congratulations to the Michigan Wolverines on the victory, and we'll see you next time here on the Big Ten Network.